we at DIYA Mumbai welcome you all on this yet another session of Gyan Sabha. This is the 53rd session of Gyan Sabha. Gyan Sabha is a platform where we invite people from all walks of life, uh, from the fields of science, technology, humanities, entertainment, those who are engaged in social services, social works, entrepreneurs, and people from the corporate world. These people come on the platform of Gyan Sabha. They share their views, and these views we make it a point to use these views as a starting point in nation building activities. On this session of ज्ञान सभा हम बहुत ही भाग्यशाली हैं आज कि ज्ञान सभा के आज के सेशन में हमारे साथ हैं रीमा मोहन जी. We welcome you, ma'am. Ma'am is the CEO of NSC Foundation promoted by the NSC Group. She worked with Times Foundation, the Times Group, Srimati Sulochanadevi Singhania Trust, the Raymonds Group, Ford Foundation and MS University, Baroda. Designed low-cost pedagogic methods for primary education to impart English language skills to children from disadvantaged communities. Member of the core team which designed and implemented award-winning education programs like Tech India, Lead India, and Teach English. Alumnus of the prestigious Fortune US State Department Global Women's Leadership Program. Quite an illustrious profile. And we are indeed lucky to have you today with us, ma'am, to discuss this very important topic, which is contextual in the times that we live in today, which is CSR for nation building. I'd like to request you, ma'am, to share your views with us. Please welcome.
Thank you, Advocate Anand, for that very warm welcome. Thank you also for having me on this platform today and allowing me to share my thoughts. It's indeed an honor to be here today. The short film that was shown earlier was indeed very inspirational, and it is heartening to see that the initial suggestion of Dr. Abdul Kalam at the convocation of the Dev Sanskriti Vishwavidyalaya has now turned into this huge movement. The Divine India Youth Association is a promising volunteering initiative of the All World Gayatri Parivar headquartered in Haridwar, and I've known them since around 2010. I'm inspired by this movement and the selfless work that is done worldwide by the volunteers in the field of environment, especially tree plantation, health, and education. The team brings together an extraordinary sense of commitment, shared vision, and a high degree of values that allows them to collaborate and to undertake the initiatives in a very systematic and focused manner. Last but not least, a thanks to Harshul and Sucheta, who have tirelessly worked backstage to put this together. I'm going to be speaking on CSR, or the corporate social responsibility activities, and attempt to give you an insight into the history and the status as well as the format of this very mandated activity in India today. I would also like to leave some time for questions and answers, as I feel that is the most important aspect of any interaction. And the idea is that the audience takes back learnings and inputs that really are relevant to them and what they can apply to their day to day situations. When we talk of a corporate or when we talk of any business entity, the whole rationale for having a business entity is that it makes profits. However, the profits cannot be separated from the people of the planet and the people who work for the entity, for the corporate, as well as the environment, which is that of the planet. So these three integrations are very much required for sustainability. That is, for a corporate to flourish, for the environment and the planet to flourish, and for the ecosystem to flourish. So that is where we got this whole concept of how we need to have an integrated and sustainable outlook to profits. Who's a responsible corporate? A corporate that is conscious, that is credible, that is compassionate. We forget these things in the rat race to make profits. But when we look at a sustainable corporate, a corporate that is a sort of an ideal corporate, we see the economic aspect of the entire business linked to the environment, linked to the society. And that is where the social responsibility as a part of this entire sustainability framework and that of the responsible corporate comes in. Because ultimately, when a corporate succeeds, one cannot leave out people around the corporate in the environment of the corporate. There has to be an inclusive growth and development if everyone is to go ahead and everyone is to succeed. Otherwise, it's going to be a short-term progress only. So, according to the World Business Council, corporate social responsibility is the continuing commitment by business to behave ethically and contribute to the economic development. So you see, when you look at the ethical and contribute to the economic development, these two things go hand in hand. The first stakeholder is that of the employees, the workforce that works, their families, because there is a cascading effect that they take home to their families. So when we say economic prosperity, it is for people who work in the corporate, for the employees, and their families. Then to the society at large, because there is a society that lives in and around a corporate. So that inclusivity needs to be also factored in, and then it goes to society at large. And then there is a ripple effect which goes into the nation. So in the 1800s, we all know when we had the Industrial Revolution and then you had the New Age, we had a number of very wealthy businessmen who came up and they acquired, either in terms of assets, in terms of wealth, and then they realized they need to start giving. So it started with Andrew Carnegie. Somewhere in the year 1889, he wrote a book called Gospels of Wealth, where he exhorted all the other businessmen to actually start giving. And then there was this cascading effect, the late 1800s, 1900s, you had the Rockefeller Foundation, and many others who then came into the ambit. Can corporates be inclusive in the way that they work so that those communities around them also prosper? So these were all some of the thoughts when India mandated in 2013, it came into effect in April 2014, that there is a certain set criteria for the companies, and these companies should give 2% of an average set of profits that are calculated in a certain manner, and this has to go to certain identified activities, and that was called mandated corporate social responsibility. The seeds of thought had already started in the early 2000s. So by the time it was 2011 and so on, it was a very, very structured sort of activity. And in 2013, this draft report was accepted and it became a part of Section 135, which came out in the Companies Act. I'm just giving you a sort of background on the act and the history that goes behind this whole thing. India has been the first country in the world to mandate this sort of CSR, and it came into effect, as I told you, from April the 1st, 2014. And now it's been quite a journey that we've had since then. What the Act really looks for is that, is it a long-term approach? Is there a design to the program? Is there, is it being monitored? And is there a clear impact? So this is the CSR program life cycle. You see the detailed process map that really goes. So this is what I wanted to highlight, that when a corporate comes into the development sector, they try to bring some amount of systems and processes. So the input that goes in to the activity and the design of the program, we try to measure the output. So the indicators in terms of output, the outcomes and the impact, as well as the documentation that goes with it, which forms a very important part, because at the end of the day, when you do all these activities and you don't have anything to show it for, then there's no way we can record or maintain a record and see what we have done after the period in time. So this is one of the paradigm shifts that really happens when we have corporate activities in the development sector, where things are measured and that are measurable. That a lot of companies have done a lot of good work over the years. We have Tata Trust, we have the Birlas, we have the Mahindras, they've started the Nanikali, and a number of other organizations of late who have come into the sector, and they have really done a lot of work. And there are a lot of flagship programs that have come about. We have the Niti Aayog also. We have the concept of aspirational districts. And that is where we focus a lot of our activities on. The SDG goals are global goals. It was felt by the UN that we needed to sort of converge the efforts of the world into common goals. So at the national level, we had the Niti Aayog's aspirational district program for 112 districts in India, which, as I told you, were all ranked on certain key indicators. And then we had the international goals. So the idea of CSR is really to link to national, and it is also to link to the SDGs, which are the international goals. So what happens is that when somebody does CSR, it's not separated, it's not segregated, but it also aligns to the government indicators, to the government outcomes, and then it can be reported at an international level as well. When you look at corporate, also it's about employee volunteering. DIYA is one of the largest youth volunteering networks. I think I've known DIYA since 2008. I've known them 8 or 9. So I know the type of work that you all do in terms of volunteering. So whatever we do, whether it is at an individual level, at an organizational level, or at a social level, there has to be some sort of a goal. And when we work with organizations that have similar DNAs and similar goals, it's just more easy to get to that, to the end point quickly, because you have a collective association, you have collective activity. It helps us really to evolve and to be a better person. Now, what does that mean in terms of corporate? There are enough studies that have said that when employees take part in CSR activities, when they take part in social activities, to become a corporate citizen, that is, that person who takes part in corporate social responsibilities as an employee, as a family member, and as a citizen of the nation or of the society that they are a part of, all these really improve. So when we do volunteering activities, when we do socially responsible activities, because at the end of the day, we are privileged. We have food on our tables, we have families, we have associations, we have friends, we have the strength of a collective around us, who may be friends, who may be organizations like DIYA. So these type of support systems that we have really help us to go forward, and therefore I say we are very privileged in so many ways. We have access to technology, we have access to information, and which empowers us, because that is an extremely powerful tool. Knowledge comes from technology, technology comes from education, education comes from the systems and processes that we have in our environment that have compelled us to reach this level, and therefore we are privileged. You can start in a small way around your home, around your ecosystem, your environment, and then you move on. It's like what I like to call a circle of influence. Circle of influence could be small, it could be limited to 1 or 2 people, then it becomes intense. Say, for example, a mother and her family. So that's a very intense relationship where the change happens. Her values are imbibed by her children, and it's a 24/7 process. As you grow, as you go, as you enlarge your circle of influence, that increases. So it becomes 500,000 and more than that. So a CSR is also like that, in the sense the corporate circle of influence through CSR is multiplied manifold. So the amount and the number of people that a corporate or a CSR, which is a very structured activity, can reach, can be extremely large. And that also is linked to the volunteering, to the employees within the corporate, that they are also able to take part in this journey of the CSR of the corporate. With that, I think I will just give time for a lot of questions that will be interesting. It's actually the question and answer sessions that are more informative. If you really ask me what is a takeaway from CSR, one of the things that really comes to my mind is that, as with any corporate, the corporate has a certain vision. Now the vision is very clearly defined and outlined, and that outline or that vision is also has very clear indicators and outcomes and impact. Now, all these are measurable and verifiable. So when a corporate does CSR with NGO partners or with any other partner that it has, now it does a very structured activity, which is audited, which is measurable, which is evaluated, and which is monitored. So, to my mind, this is one of the the key aspects of a CSR activity. It's a very transparent activity, which is there in the public domain. So, if somebody wants to get access to that information, they are able to. They know which program, where is it, being conducted, which geography, which sector, and what is the cost that has been committed for this, how much is the spend that has been undertaken. So all these things are very structured, they are transparent. And the third aspect is that yes, we can, it is an engaging activity. So we engage the employees, we engage the workers, we engage the community in and around the office or the factory. So these are the ways that it is slightly different, and these I think are the salient points of CSR. So there are two things that you really measure. So one is, it's called actually a log frame approach, where you have a objective. So let's say my objective is to teach students in standard 5. So I'm going to focus on standard 5. Does this group of children, or does this child, for example, does this child know the competency that it's supposed to, which is grade appropriate? So for standard 5, age 10, does the child know, say, fractions? Right? So this could be one of the things. And does the child know to read? Does the child know to write in the local language, in English? Whatever is the state curriculum. So this is your objective, that to bring a group of, say, 100 children to their grade appropriate level and ensure that they transition to standard 6. Then you're coming to the way you design the program. How are you going to do the program? What is the methodology? What is the design of the program? Are we going to have para teachers? Are we going to work in government school? Who's your target audience? Are you going to work in a mohalla? Are you going to work in a community? Are your volunteers going to go there? Right? So this will be your methodology. Now, basis this methodology is your output. So how many days are you going to structure your activity? How many days are you going to go to the community? Or how many meetings, how many trainings, or how many sessions of capacity building are you going to have for the teachers? So all this will become your output. And then you will come to the outcome. That is, has the child learned? And if the child has learned, basis your baseline, point A, like he knew some fractions, but he did not know all the fractions, to point X, where he's learned maybe 80%, he knows the competencies for mathematics for grade 5. So this entire sequential planning is an important factor in this whole thing, in how this entire initiative has to be measured. This is an important question because, how do you improve the quality of education with a CSR investment? And today we are at the cusp of a dilemma, because we are in the, bang in the center of a COVID pandemic, and children have lost out almost a year and a half of their studies. One hand, you have urban children who are all the time in front of their laptops and systems. And on the other hand, you have a group of children in rural areas who have been left out totally. Can we get education to the doorstep or to the community of a child who needs that education? The child is not able to go to school. So really, our approach has been to work with Shikshan Mitras, and it's really helped us. And they are community people who have been trained and empowered, and we've been able to get a lot of good results. There is a lot of intangible brand benefit that accrues over a period of time when you do good work, and when you're seen to be doing good work, when you're doing honest work, which is transparent, and which is really honest work, and not some sort of brand building or advertising exercise, then people recognize the entity over a period of time.
And that is when the intangible benefit of being a responsible corporate, you see, because if you go back to my first slide, corporate social responsibility is a very thin sliver or a very thin slice of the entire gamut of being ethical, having good governance practices, of being environmentally very conscious. So all those factors also come into play. It's not just that you do corporate social responsibility and then everywhere else one does what one really wants. So everything has to be integrated. Your ethics, your values, your economic sense has to be integrated into the environmental concerns, the employee concerns, and the social concerns. So they're all linked to each other and they're not separated from each other. And then the brand value will come, where there is already a mandate to spend 2% and the criterias are clearly laid down, then there really is no conflict, because it's a mandate, it's law, and it has to be declared and I have to comply. So therefore, there really is no conflict. And I think most of the corporates, if you see my earlier slides, you will see that the spending has gone 2014 from around 8,000, 10,000 crores. It's gone up right to around 20,000 crores in 2019 or so. And so that itself shows that it has taken some time for the corporates to come together, but they have. And they've really, now they are really stepping up and the steam is also building and they are taking it forward. I think corporates have stepped up to this entire pandemic and they've done a huge lot. Speaking for ourselves, I will say that we as an entity, we have spent at every level, whether it's at a central level where we needed to give to a PM cares, where we needed to give to the state CM relief, whether we needed to give actual PPE kits or masks, even to the aspirational district hospitals where we worked, where there were migrants moving. We worked with them to give them food. That very untimely situation that happened in the second week of May. Unseen requirements which came from a lot of government hospitals. People hear of ventilators and other things. There were things like when surgery is conducted and you do not know if it is a COVID positive patient, the after cauterization, when the steam or when there is a smoke or steam or little droplets of blood, that itself was responsible for creating havoc in surgical in OTs, and a number of resident doctors fell ill. So these were the hospitals where small equipment was quickly required to fix these gaps. My point is that every level you need to plug the gap in some way. We cannot say we plugged it in one place because the needs are so much. I think the transitioning of a CSR, which is a very localized activity, because if you see the act, it says that one needs to take up CSR in and around the area of operations and all that, and then slowly transition. We have transitioned to a level working at the national level, working with the government. There are a lot of activities we do at the policy level. For example, we work with the Social Justice Ministry and other ministries as well. But CSR effectiveness at policy level, I think they've come out with a lot of new amendments, and there is a lot of rigor that's happening. So as on date, I think we are more or less well entrenched and well on the path to really, and they've spent almost a year talking about these new amendments. They had a very high level committee that came together. The draft was circulated amongst corporates as well as the ordinary citizens. But I think CSR getting into policy, becoming a large movement that really creates policy level changes is what I think is happening at many levels, and it will continue to happen. Let me give you a very small example. Elders, senior citizens. By 2050, we are going to be the one of the, 1 in 5 Indians is going to be a senior citizen. There has to be a lot of conversation around this. We need so much of work, of initiatives, of policy changes that we need to do. So these are the conversations that one can have with the government in terms of really the activities that need to be done. Interesting, because we ourselves are looking at a lot of technology solutions. But, honestly, if you ask me, I think a large population has now slipped the gap, slipped through the crack, slipped the gap. and we are having all these children out of school. We all know when they go home for 2 months of their summer holiday, they come back as a blank slate. So I think really embedding the village, going back to the concept of village schools, having village school masters and teachers, and having para teachers who can be trained to also help these teachers, so that the community is embedded with people from their area and their location, without being transferred every 3 years. What little I have seen of the rural areas, this seems to be a huge problem, the investment of that person in the community. And education is not just about competencies, it's about value building, that it's all about the values that are imbibed, the environment, compassion that is there, the compassion for the environment. How do I live my life as a responsible citizen? So there's a whole lot of things that go into education. And these things cannot be divorced, it cannot be separated from core learning activities. And for this, you need a person to facilitate this education as a holistic aspect.
Thank you for that riveting session on CSR, ma'am. It was indeed a delight hearing your views and answering so many questions. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us.